Yes? Okay. So today we're talking about the way I respond, and are we reacting or responding? So I'm going to I'd like to mention that when we are, as I mentioned before, we are responding to something, between the stimulus and my response, there is a space. In that space is our power, our possibility to choose how to respond. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. And this was said by Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you know about Viktor Frankl, that Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist that was sent to a concentration camp. And he wrote the book, a bestseller book that is called Man's Search for Meaning. It's a master book to read. It's little, it's not a big book, but in that book, he shared his story that how come in situations at the border of the age of life and death, and knowing in his case that his parents and his partner died, they were killed in the concentration camp, what keep him alive? It's a beautiful book. So this is what he said, that between the stimulation and my response, there is a space. That space is extremely fast. That space is triggered in 12 milliseconds, and I have another 18 milliseconds to respond. So it's so fast that it's very hard to really have the word that he's using there, choose. So we need to learn how to do it to respond very, very quickly. So we respond through the roles we play. The word roles is what Moreno, the creator of psychodrama, used to describe the way we respond, the role we play. The roles can be three types. One is constructive. We're going to have a look at it later. There are good roles, makes us better. The other ones are fragmenting, that breaks me out. And the other ones are ambivalent. The essence of life is where these roles play, is how do I know myself? This is what we are talking about today. If we learn this in life, our life will be much better. And these are tools that we should teach this in the school, from the beginning of the school. And how to know myself better, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing. The other one is how do I know others? What is happening with the other person? This is called role reversal, putting myself in the other person's shoes. And then is, if I know myself and I know the other person, the key element here is, what do I do with it? How do I manage the relationship between the other person and me? Remember that the question before was, how can I picture my child? There's a relationship there. But also, I didn't mention this time, but we took last time too, if the person is sharing that parenting or caring with someone else, is also how I perceive the other person too. Because remember that we're talking about a system. So we are working what happened in that system. And communication, the relationship between me and the other is always about roles. And we call that active roles. And the active roles is the combination between a feeling and an action. So it's what I feel and what I do is what makes the roles we are doing. So every time I act, it is a feeling. I'm a happy enjoyer, entertainer. I'm an angry shouter. There is always a feeling and an action. To be able to understand that and to notice that and to name that gives us tools, skills for life that is invaluable. It changes our life. First, to be able to understand what I'm feeling, that sometimes it's not very easy, and also what I'm doing, and also perceive the others, what they are feeling and they are doing. As I mentioned before, that is called role reversal. So the roles, as I mentioned, can be constructive. A constructive role is a role that expands myself. And a constructive role also expands and makes the other person grow. Every time that we talk about constructive or the growth role, positive roles, is always for everyone involved. For example, a calm explainer, a happy celebrator, a caring challenger. Challenging is not easy. I mean, I need to challenge somebody, but I do it with a spirit of caring. So you can see here that the feeling is constructive, but also the explainer, the action also is constructive. The important things of the constructive roles is that are not related to like. Very often we need to play a constructive role that we may not like it. We may even resent it. But if we really think, we need to do that. So constructive roles are not related to like. For example, when I say here, caring challenger, I may need to challenge somebody because their behavior hasn't been appropriate. And I can be an angry challenger, but also I can be a caring challenger. So again, the role, the constructive role is not related to like, but is related to being appropriate. This is the right word, appropriate. It's good for me and also good for the other person. And these roles makes us grow. The other role, we call it fragmenting. The fragmenting role is the role that weakens us, drains me, and drains the other person. For example, an angry withdrawer, a harsh put downer. We play with words in the active roles. Sometimes we use words that are a made-up word, like a put downer. A tense perfectionist. So again, both the feeling and the action are fragmenting. If you are in that place, it's exhausting. That drains me and drains the other person. But in the same way, the constructive roles are not roles that I really like. Fragmented roles, not necessarily I will dislike. I might like it too. I always put an example that happened with my wife. One day, my wife treated me very badly. She was very harsh. And on that day, I didn't deserve it. Maybe in other days I did, but on that day I didn't. And she noticed. She was aware that what she did was not right. So very beautifully and lovingly, she said, "I'm sorry, Carlos, in the way I was, I don't know, tense or whatever." But her explanation and saying sorry was extremely heartfelt, beautiful. But I continued with an attitude. And after that time, I felt that I was with this attitude. And because I teach these things, I thought, Carlos, what role are you playing? And I knew it. I was right of being offended because she was wrong. In that moment, and she recognized that. But it's not I was right. I became righteous. I felt the righteousness inside me. And what I was doing, feeling righteous. What I was self-righteous. What I was doing, punish her. She was very nice, but I was talking to her like this, putting her down. But the more so I was a selfish punisher. In my mind, she would say, "Oh, she deserved that because she hurt me." But I knew that it was a fragmenting role. But the more important thing is that I loved it. It was a beautiful feeling of self-righteousness. So in the same way that some constructive roles are very hard, I may not like it, but I had to do it anyway. Sometimes we might like the fragmenting roles because we might feel the person deserves that. And this is a lie. It's a lie that we tell ourselves. And then It's a combination of both roles. This is called ambivalent roles. For example, a resentful carer. I tell this story that could be a common story. It's a story of a couple with a child, and both work outside, and the child is sick, may say have COVID. And they talk with the mother and the husband and the father, and they said, I'll stay home. The mother said, I will stay home. Okay, stay home, taking care of the child. And they have a two-store house, so the wife is up and down, the mother up and down the whole day, and the child is not very well. She's exhausted. On a Saturday, the husband is lying down watching television, and the child screams, "Mom!" Of course, whoever will say, "Mom!" And the wife said to the husband, "Darling, can you go?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." But he doesn't go. And the child continues screaming, "Mom!" So she goes up. How does she feel? She feels resentful, very angry, frustrated. But she goes and with the child is, "Yes, my son, what do you want?" So she was a carer, a resentful carer. This is when we have a feeling that is constructive or fragmenting, and the other one is different. Usually the feeling is fragmenting, but the action sometimes is good. So in that case, it's resentful carer. We can see also sarcastic communicator. Communicator is positive, it's constructive, we are communicating, but it has an edge that is sarcastic. So in that case, it weakens the action. The other one is panicking educator or tense educator. Educator is constructive, but being tense or panicking or harsh weakens the role. This is very important for us, especially for roles like there are service roles, nurses, teachers, chaplain, priest, doctors, and also at home, a father, mother, sometimes a friend of caring for someone. So it's very important for us to be aware what is the feeling, because in that case, these roles drains us in the way that we don't notice and weakens us in a very dreadful way. And this is the origin of burnout, stress and burnout, especially in this type of roles. So these are the roles that we like to look at, and there is a dynamic between the roles. And then we'll see if we can have a little bit of a chat. For example, I'm feeling well. I'm enjoying a constructive role. And I ask my child, "How are you? How was your day? How was your day?" And "How was your day?" And the child respond in a negative way, or like whatever way. So I started positive. I send a good vibe, but when I come back is fragmenting. That cannot not touch me, cannot trigger me. So the question is in that place, what do I do with that? This is what Viktor Frankl is talking about, the space. I started well, but what I got was not very good. What do I do with that? And this is the space that I cannot not respond. I will respond. I will respond in a constructive way, in a fragmented way, or in an ambivalent way. It's important to also see that different personalities respond quickly in one or the other, or constructive or fragmenting. In that case, the question is how I'm going to continue that conversation. That conversation can go very badly, or it can be a response that contains the other person, that even though it's in not a very good space, the person will feel contained. So the question is, independent of the stimulation I receive, how can I respond in a constructive way, even though I might not like it, but I know that this is a container that this will be good for whom? For me and also for the other. So I'd like to pause here. And after that, I'd like to share with you what is called a role cascade. But life exists here. I start maybe in a good place. The response is negative. What do I do there? And $1,000,000 question. But this is the moment. And depending on where we are, if we are tired, exhausted, sometimes a little bit of wine, that weakens our response. And again, what is my first response? I like to say that in my type of personality, sadly, my first response is usually attack. It's usually fragmenting into the attack. And for other people, sometimes the response is not to attack, but it's to withdraw, to disappear, to be paralyzed. So in that ways, next week, we are going to talk about the brain, how this works. But today, a reflection about our relationship. I come back again. Think of a relationship that you had before that started well and didn't end very well, or started bad and ended worse. So I'd like to pause here to see if there is any, hopefully, any questions or comments, so we can talk more about this instead of a theory, more practical. So I'd like to see if there is any questions. I would really love to respond to that. I'd really like to see if anyone can, just message Melanie or myself privately to see if we can do this differently, to be able to share a little bit more personally, or if this is what everybody prefers, it's okay too. Here we are with Constantine and Melanie at service. And hopefully this is helping. But if we don't have a feedback, it's a little bit hard to know if we are responding to your needs. So if you can put some comments in it will help me in how to do this even better, because I like to be a happy sharer with you. Well, not much. Yes?
Michaela says, the response you give is very dependent on your own emotions and feelings in that moment. You would have to be really continuous of how you respond and practice this.
Yes, it's true. This is why a key word for that is to notice. To notice, and it's not easy. And I must say that I think I'm very good in training and teaching this, but in the moment of the tension, I'm like any one of you. And all depends how I'm feeling. So, and to be aware of that and to see how I'm self-controlling that, self-managing, my emotions in that sense. So I can be tired and exhausted, going back home, tired and exhausted. Since I was little, I used to admire the teachers. I grew up in a small town in Argentina, and I knew everybody there. And I remember the teacher I have, and I knew that she had 3 children. And I was thinking, I don't know, 7 years old. I'm thinking, poor woman, we have all of us, a lot of 30 children here, and going home and has her own children. So this was, I was little. So that person will go home tired and exhausted. If there is not aware of that, it will transfer that. It will put all of that withdrawing or attacking or ambivalent as a resentful carer, and it will be a draining experience. So being aware of the emotion is essential, and we have also other processes to be able to learn about that too. But even if I'm exhausted and tired, if I notice that, I could do some exercises or seconds just to be aware of that, to be able to play a role, an active role that is a constructive role.
Sometimes I like to say as well that it really depends on, sometimes you can feel when you're just having one of those days, and sometimes, there are moments where you can pause before an interaction. Now, not always, but sometimes there are those times where you just know that walking into that family function, there's going to be that person there that will trigger you. And there's the role cascade that Carlos will show now is very good for that, for example. Or even your partner coming home at the end of their work day and you know that they've had a bad day, it's almost warming up to, okay, well, what am I feeling right now? So that it's almost, we can't prevent how we're going to feel in the moment, but we can at least be aware of how we're feeling as often as possible. Am I having a good day or a bad day? And connecting with that as regularly as we can.
I'd also like to add there what Mele is saying, that we respond in the best way we know and we can at that moment. And it's very important to be aware of our desires for the other person. What I desire, what is what is the word I'm missing? Yes, what I desire for the other person, the goodness I want for my desire. But what I do, it sometimes very different to what I desire for the other person. So that gap sometimes is very important. And what is the sign, Melanie? That I'm judged? How is it?
We judge others for their actions, yet judge ourselves and our intention.
This is very important. So sometimes, especially now, as Constantine was saying, we are facing, especially for children on the exams now, how they call the pre-exams, the trials?
Trials, yes.
The trials, on the trials, the level of tension in the house, in the home, it will be higher. And the response that the parents will have with the children, it will be heightened because we want the best for them. So remember the exercise before. First, the virtues and gift. What is my desire for them? And that creates inside us our what we would like to give to them. But when we see or perceive that, especially with children, what they are doing is jeopardizing what we desire for them, for our intention to help them, we act in the way that sometimes is very far away to our intention. This is what we call intention and action and behavioral gap. That's the article that I think Melanie has shared with you. This is key because I judge myself for my intention. Don't you know that I want the best for you? But the other person responds for what we do. So what we are doing are building trust, is building the love that Constantine was talking about, or is based in fear. And the word fear here is key. Now in front of the trials, the tensions and the fears will be heightened. But it's not also the child that I'm concerned about. I may be concerned about that the school may not be doing the job that they need to do. But also my partner. I feel that the way that my partner is dealing with that situation, that the student, the child is not studying as I believe they should, and the person is not responding to that as I expect, that creates a tension in the system that is very bad. So this is the time that for us to be aware of, first, when I'm coming home, how am I feeling? What am I doing? And if what I'm feeling and doing feeds the virtues and gift of the other and builds what I desire for them. This is the key. And sorry for repeating this so many times. But for us to change our behavior, we need repetition, consistency, and a period of time.